I cannot tell if I loved the book, found it meh, am just depressed by it, or I'm just tired because I stayed up till 1 a.m. to finish it. Hey y'all, I'm the Geek Apprentice and welcome to my prequel to the Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping. I don't want to say book review because I don't consider myself qualified to give big critiques or anything like that. It's basically, I read this yesterday and I'm talking about it now, much like I did with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes 5 years ago. A few things before we get started. 1, spoilers, obviously. 2, you will probably and have already heard sounds from little baby geek over here. It is not quite time for his nap yet, but I am ready to talk, and so you're gonna hear him. That's just how it's gonna be. 3, I am going to miss stuff. Okay? I'm going to miss stuff. I'm pretty sure in my similarly done video about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I just didn't talk about Sejanus. So just be fully prepared that I might do something that dumb. And finally, this is just my opinion, my observations. You don't have to feel the same. I shouldn't have to say that. Yet here we are. He's already ready to go to sleep. Right after I recorded that intro, Baby Geek said, yep, I'm ready for a nap right now. So now he's sleeping, and therefore I will be talking just a little bit quieter, just in case. It's me as the Mockingjay, in case you're wondering what that image is. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit more apprehensive going into reading this prequel than I was for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. People had been asking for Haymitch's games, Haymitch's story for quite some time, and I was always one of the people that said, nope, if Suzanne Collins doesn't feel it's necessary, then I don't want her to write extra just because people want it. But of course, if she is writing it, I'm totally gonna read it. But that's not what had me apprehensive. What had me nervous was the fact that in Catching Fire and Mockingjay, we do get we get background, right, on what happened with Haymitch. We get to see what happened in his games, or what we thought happened in his games. Talk more on that later. And in Mockingjay, we learned pretty much in the simplest form, one sentence answer, why he is the way he is now. I feel like I'm dancing around the spoilers, even though obviously I've already mentioned that this is a spoiler video. So if you're watching this, I expect that you have read every book and probably seen the films too. So yes, we learned in Mockingjay, the book, that Snow had his mom, his little brother, and his girlfriend killed. Knowing that, and then going into reading this book, I'm thinking, is it going to have an emotional impact? Or not will it have an emotional impact, but will it have a strong one, since I already know that it's going to happen? The short answer is yes, it's still going to have an impact, because there was also so much more to talk about, so many other things. I told myself that I would make a little note on my phone or something on my laptop and, keep this somewhat organized. That's not happening. And I will forever use the excuse that I have a baby. Is that a cop-out? Yes. Is it true? Also yes. Starting with kind of my general overall feelings, I'm still quite tired. I didn't get the book until about maybe like 2 in the afternoon yesterday. I pre-ordered it from Amazon. And when I got home, it was there, because I went out and did some errands with Baby Geek and then came back and it was there, and I was very excited, and he went right down for a nap, thank goodness, and I was able to start reading. And God bless Geek Husband, once he got home, he pretty much said, hey, go to our room, get a blanket, I'm going to bring you water, your phone, and some hot tea, specifically English breakfast hot tea, because he was like, I have a feeling you're going to be reading till it's done. He was correct. I read until I finished. And said, I got baby. The only thing I really needed to do was help put Baby Geek down, because he really only goes down quickly and smoothly, maybe, if it's with me. So that was it. So again, I finished reading at 1 a.m. and I'm tired and still kind of taking it in. But my overall thoughts were That was dark. Maybe it's been a hot minute since I read Ballad, but I feel as though there were some elements of this that were a lot darker. Maybe it was just shock value. Maybe I'm conflating it with the film a bit, and so the film for Ballad, which took out quite a few of the shocking things. And I'm definitely nervous about the idea of seeing this in theaters next year. So yes, there was definitely quite a bit of dark elements. Welly's death, I'm sorry. I was not expecting decapitation. That really hurt, and I was actually kind of mad at Haymitch. I was very mad at Haymitch about that one. I was like, you should not have left. I mean, I don't know what else we were gonna do, but I mean, he had to do, I don't know. Poor guy. The whole situation with Luella versus fake Lulu, that threw me for a tailspin. Just in general, this book was dark and depressing because it seems hopeful. They're talking about uprisings, and I'm gonna get into the details, sort of. We'll see. My brain is still rattled. And you think, oh my gosh, Haymitch is actually gonna break the arena. He's gonna do what Katniss does later, or at least I guess he tries to do what Katniss does later. And you know, in the back of your head, it's not gonna work. And heck, even people that are movie-only fans, when they go see this, sure, there's gonna be tons of shock value, but to some degree, they know that it's all for naught as well. They're going to see these elements of them fighting to break open the arena and think, yeah, but we know he must not. We know it must not go well because look how he turns out. There's something about that provides a unique experience when reading, I will say that. But finishing up overall impressions, I don't think it was my favorite. I still love it. I love all of these, but I don't think it was my favorite, and I don't know if that's because of the general sad feeling to it and hopelessness that came with it, or just because of the content itself. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were so many times of, like, I felt like it was every few pages I was having to put it down and go, what? They're here? No. Shut up. There was plenty of that, and yet I didn't feel as gripped. I don't know if I'm just tired. Could be that. But I still think it's a great book, and I'm so happy to have this backstory, and there's so much that played into Ballad as well. So I wanted more snow scenes though. Now let's talk about all of the name drops. Okay? So many name drops. I was not expecting that. First being Burdock. He doesn't say Burdock Everdeen right at the beginning, but he mentions his good friend Burdock. Haymitch talks about his dear friend Burdock, who has a beautiful voice and sings really, really well. And immediately I went, he's an Everdeen. This is probably Katniss's dad. Lo and behold, I was right. And I mean, it was literally the next page, like not even a whole page over. It was like a paragraph later. And on top of that, we get Katniss's mom's name, Astrid March. Astrid March. We have the naming convention of the Covey. So Lenore Dove being, I guess, related to someone. I mean, well, she's related to Tam Amber. The moment I read Tam Amber, I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe it. I wouldn't have thought of Dove as a color, but now it makes sense. I guess my theory about Katniss being the granddaughter of Maud Ivory is out. Maud Ivory is alluded to, but it sounds like he's like a distant cousin of Lenore Dove, so he's probably not. I don't know. He could still be related to the Covey, and they're not even necessarily all related to each other. So there's that. Plutarch. This answers so many questions I had about Plutarch. The main one being, when did he get involved in rebellion? He's always wanted to rebel. He's always been against all of this, sort of. He's still, I don't know about his morality. He's still a little iffy, but he's always been like this. I mean, I guess when it comes to the morality, he is a little bit perturbed by his ancestry, even though we don't know too much about it, except that they're filthy rich, and Snow's jealous of him. So it does make me wonder how Plutarch got away with all of this, everything that happens in this book, and ends up rising to being head game maker anyway. And Snow does not see it. Does not. Wow. Wyrus, Beatty, and Mags. Okay. There were a couple points where I thought, okay, this is too many name drops, but it worked. It worked. The thing that threw me off was age reference, because I'm used to visualizing the actors and actresses that were given for them, like in Catching Fire and the Mockingjay films. But that's obviously not a good reference, and it was never clear in Catching Fire how old these victors were in relation to each other, other than Max being a lot older, correct? I pictured Wyrus as a lot older than Beatty. Turns out, Wyrus is incredibly young and goes crazy later because she gets tortured. Turns out, Mags is what I thought. Beatty, though, he has a wife and 2 children, one of whom gets killed in the games. I'm not. That was another gory death. That was another, when it said it was just Ampert's bones, Susan Collins, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Actually, though, because these are messed up. I never had questions about where Effie came from. I just figured, she had family history in the Capitol, and she, I don't know, just worked her way wanting to become an escort and just never could get past District 12. But knowing that she has this history with Haymitch, and that she was actually always kind of a nice person, and even Haymitch says it, she's not mean, she just has a lot of unlearning to do. Is that referring to her? He may have been saying that about someone else, but he does kind of talk about that with her. Also, Effie is older than Haymitch. Would have seen it the other way around, but that's okay. Minor name drop, but there was the mention of last name Sickle, and I don't know if y'all remember, in Ballad there was a classmate of Snow's whose last name was Sickle. I don't recall if there was any other major name drops, but I was very shocked to get the backstory of particularly Effie, Beatty, Wyrus, and Mags. Mags, now we know when Haymitch says she's a really sweet lady, he's not just talking. He's not just saying that from by the by. He knows firsthand that she's a wonderful woman. Wyrus was normal. She was like, she was the victor of the year before, so she would have been, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 older than Haymitch. Not that much older, and she's like short-circuiting after she gets tortured, so that's lovely, and that explains a lot, and really sad. Beatty, never would have guessed. Wife and kid. 2 kids. We don't know what happens to the other one. I guess they're never talked about in the other games. Do they get killed? Or the other games, the other books. So I guess they're killed. I don't know. Maybe in childbirth. Haymitch has twin sisters. That's sad. And Effie being actually this really wonderful person from the get. Just, nowhere near as bad as I could not pronounce her name. Drusilla? She was horrible. And the stylist. Speaking of stylist, no mention of Tigress. I really thought we were gonna get some talk of Tigress. I was wrong. Absolutely none. We know that. Sorry, I'm still sick. We know that she was a stylist in the games until Snow said she wasn't pretty enough. That's what she says in Mockingjay. But now that we know from Ballad that she is Snow's literal older cousin. So that's the name drops. Let's talk about added lore. So I've already mentioned that we have Katniss's parents' names. We have Burdock Everdeen and Astrid March. We know Burdock might have some relation to the Covey, sort of. He's a distant cousin of Lenore Dove, but he doesn't have the devil name. So probably not. Yeah, we hear about him singing, and his family does well because they all hunt. And you've got Astrid, that's so crazy, her name's Astrid, with her apothecary shop and just being a wonderful woman. Haymitch actually being good friends with Burdock and knowing Astrid. We knew that he knew Astrid. We knew that he knew Katniss's mom because he mentions that in the book Catching Fire, how, even in his day, everyone went to her for healing and that she was just a genuinely good person. And so he's, kind of rooting for them as a couple, which is great because that does work out. Kind of doesn't, but kind of does. There's Blair. I forget what his relation was with everyone, but he was a friend. Then you have Tam Amber and other Covey that are brought up. But Lenore Dove. Can we talk about Lenore Dove? We need to talk about Lenore Dove for a second. This is where we're really going off the rails and I have no script. I mean, it's assumed she's a Baird, but not directly, I guess they're all Maud Ivory Baird, Lucy Gray Baird, Tam Amber Baird. I don't know. They probably just all call themselves Bairds. She's singing, but she purposely wants to be defiant. And the fact that she's the strong one and Haymitch is a coward. He tries, but in general, he's a coward. Oh, I feel like I could do an entire episode. I should do an entire video about Lenore Dove. So I'm not going to linger on that too long because this is supposed to be general, but wow. Lenore Dove is a character and I love her. I like her better than Lucy Gray, and I like Lucy Gray, so there's that. The Reaping and the games in general were not at all what we thought. When Haymitch's name was not called, I immediately was like, I need to get out Catching Fire because I don't remember that being what happened. And I had to reread real quick what Katniss and Peeta saw, and it became very clear to me very quickly, everything was a cover-up. It had to be that everything was a cover-up. Turns out, yep, that's exactly what it is. Haymitch wasn't even supposed to be in the games, and I half blame him and half blame Lenore. If she had not intervened, if she had just left well enough alone, I understand why she did though. She really good heart. And then Haymitch hadn't intervened, they would probably all still be alive. But he is a seed that was planted to help further the revolution later. He was necessary. That whole thing was a sham, and the whole preparation for the games, it's much closer to what we see with the trilogy that we know, but it's still not quite there. Not everything is fully developed. It's still not super nice. The tributes are still not treated as nice as they are by the time we get to Katniss and them. And people are just a lot more brazen. They are a lot more willing to be defiant. I mean, they know they're being they know they're being listened to, but they're just a lot more willing to say and do whatever, which of course bites them in the butt, and that's why everything becomes so incredibly secretive later. Oh, and because I'm gonna forget it later, the fact that Haymitch makes alcoholic drinks, spirits, but has no desire to drink them. Irony. You know what? I'm probably better off at this point flipping through the pages and looking at things I underlined and circled. Geese. Lenore Dove and geese. She raises geese. She loves geese. What does Haymitch do at the end? He raises geese. Abernathys are known as rebels back in their day. Weird. So many songs. I cannot wait to hear the songs. The fact that Haymitch, we're Cockney now. Haymitch sings them, and he has to have an okay voice, but not a great voice. That'll be interesting. Haymitch's birthday is the Reaping. That stinks. I'm such a dummy. Sickle is the escort. Drusilla Sickle. And there's someone, it's a classmate of Snow's. It starts with a V, from Ballad. So that must be a relative. Because apparently this Sickle is old. This escort, she's older. So she's probably not much younger than Snow. I don't know. She could be a child of them. Who knows? We get Peeta's dad's name. Otho Malark. Otho. I read it as Othello, which clearly that's not it. The name, Sweetheart. The fact, and I know we learn more about this in the epilogue. I told you this is unscripted. This is everywhere. He just calls Luella Sweetheart. And something about Katniss reminds him of Luella. I'll never be able to hear him say sweetheart again. And knowing that he could have been like an uncle to Katniss. if things had not been so horrible. Also, on page 45, Lucy Gray's kind of talked about, not her name specifically, but we know that Haymitch is talking about the one and only at that point, District 12 Victor, and how Lenore Dove doesn't want to talk about her. So that's a sore spot for the Covey, and we still don't know what ended up happening to her. They're still using students in some degree, not academy students, but university students for the stylist prep team, which makes me wonder if maybe Katniss's team was like fresh out of college. It's possible. Okay, now jumping to the chariot sequence, that whole thing, just Luella, oh my gosh, that made me so sad. But Haymitch's gesture of basically saying, you did this, and the way Snow retaliates, I mean, his fate was set from the beginning. Like, it was set and sealed a while back when he did that. He said it, and Snow was like, I'm not putting up with any of this, which makes you wonder how Katniss got away with as much as she did. Something to think about. Here's something I'm wondering about with Beetee that actually makes Catching Fire almost a little bit of justice for him, just a little bit. I give up on being covert and approach him. You're Ampert's father? I am, and no doubt you're wondering why I'm here, Haymitch. Beetee removes his glasses and polishes them on his shirt. It's because I'm being punished for coming up with a plan to sabotage the capital's communication system. I'm too valuable to kill, but my son is disposable. Beetee always had a hint of rebellion in him. So did Wyrus. So did Max. But he didn't get to do what he wanted to do in the arena and lost his son, and we're gonna assume he lost his wife and unborn child too later on. Don't know. But he gets kind of payback in Catching Fire. When Katniss blows out the arena, you know, it kind of makes up for what happened here 25 years earlier. I love that Suzanne put in a sequence, if you will, with Snow. Again, I feel like there should have been a lot more Snow, but what do I know? I'm not a writer. I try to, but I'm not very good at it. But when Snow shows up, which that whole scene is just the fact that he's like dying, and I'm like, he's 58 at this point. He shouldn't be this bad off. And then understanding, oh, he just had the parade master killed, poisoned, and he was deflecting and was trying to survive. And of course, Snow with his taunting, knowing exactly what's going on with the whole Lenore Dove situation. He didn't know her name was going to be Dove, but just knowing. And you can tell Snow just will never, ever let the Lucy Gray situation go, because he makes these comments about Lenore Dove that are unfounded, just assuming that she must be exactly like Lucy Gray when she's not. She's very similar, but also he has the wrong impression of Lucy Gray and thinks she's terrible when she wasn't. So yeah, that was just so creepy and gross. Jumping back to talking about Luella, or excuse me, fake Luella, Lulu, really sad and disturbing. Page 139, Mags returns troubled. I put her to bed. There's some sort of device attached to her chest, pumping a drug into her, I think. I was afraid to remove it. That might kill her. I've seen something similar before. We know this gets put on Haymitch later, after his games. And that there's something in her ear. That poor girl. The demonstration with the game makers was weird. It was basically just a little interview. They didn't really show anything off. They just really didn't do much, which, yeah, that's why he gets a 1. That made him the target of the game makers. I have to say, for Effie's entrance, the moment I read big day, I was like, no, shut up, there's no way. We also now know that Gaul is to be credited for the whole, may the odds be ever in your favor. Ugh, gross woman. Here was a line that I really liked, and that is from Plutarch, when it says, he cuts me off. Listen, Haymitch, I know you don't like me, and you certainly don't trust me, But you should know that despite appearances, a desire for freedom is not limited to the districts, and your misfortune does not give you the right to assume so. I hope after tonight you'll consider this. Obviously, Plutarch comes from a fancy lifestyle. He's got everything going for him, but even he, oh my gosh, do you know how to not slam a door? Even he recognizes this isn't right, and what I'm living right now isn't actually freedom. I've got all of my basics met and then some, all of the necessities and then some met for miles, but this isn't freedom. This isn't freedom. This isn't what life should be, and there's something to be said for that. Also very interesting that they were able to form 2 major alliances, the Career Pack plus I think one other district, I think District 5, and then everyone else. That was pretty crazy. I remember reading that and thinking, I remember he goes off on his own. How do they account for that? And then they make that work. Lulu's death was terrible. Pulling that thing out of her chest, but knowing that it was actually sparing her. I've already mentioned Ampert and Welly. We knew about Maisley from Catching Fire, but still totally forgot. But the fact that Maisley's grandmother used to say that line from Lucy Gray's song, "Nothing they can take from you was ever worth keeping." And Haymitch knows it's a song. She doesn't know it's a song. It makes you realize it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't a crazy amount of time long ago. It's still very, very strong, but certainly after Haymitch, the Covey are just, we don't talk about them ever again. Because by the time you get to Katniss, never heard of the Covey. Never. I just found where the unlearning line is from. It has to do with Proserpina. I don't know how to say it. The whole, you have a lot of unlearning to do, but that goes for Effie too. And since that's her little sister, makes sense. So now we're past the games and everything. The fire. Taking his family. And then I was so happy he was with Lenore Dove. I was like, okay, so he gets a little bit of time with her before anything happens. And then as soon as the whole bag with the gumdrops, whatever they were, and I was like, nope, she's dead. She's poisoned. She's poisoned. She's gone. There's no... Right in front of us. That absolutely murdered me. And just reading his downfall, reading about how he just gave up. You know, for him, Lenore Dove was the brave one. Lenore Dove was the strong one, the rebellious one, and he's not. And he feels like such a failure. You know, feeling like he failed to protect so many people in the arena that he promised he was going to protect, that he wasn't able to flood the arena like he thought, that his actions led... It's not his fault, it's Snow's fault, because he didn't have to kill anybody, but led to the death of his family and Lenore Dove, blaming himself entirely for everything. And I think it's Luella's mom who says, you've got to stop saying it's your fault. You're going to feel like that for a while, but it's not. You know, Plutarch was counting on him as well as others to be able to blow up the arena or whatever, so they could start the rebellion, but they weren't prepared yet, and he just tries to forget, and that he pushes everyone away, that he physically assaults Katniss's mom because he just doesn't want anyone close to him. Like, he could have had so much healing. So many things could have been better if he had let people in. But, I mean, you can understand why he didn't. But the fact that even Burdock had to be like, okay, fine, we're not talking to you anymore. You know, he tried. He said Burdock tried to hang on the longest. The fact that he saw Katniss as a baby and knew exactly who she was, saw her in the Hob and loved how proud Burdock was of her, and again that the sweetheart name just came naturally because she reminded him of Luella, just absolutely shatters the heart so much. I can't. He's still haunted, if you will, by Lenore Dove, but this epilogue, I'm so glad she gave an epilogue. Thank you, Suzanne Collins, for an epilogue, because all I could think was, well, what is his mindset now post-war? And the fact that he feels like he can sort of let go, that he raises the geese for her, that he contributed to the book, and that he did eventually tell Peeta and Katniss what happened, and probably soon after. Like, it's when they start that whole book thing, and he didn't want to contribute, but then everything just spills out. And I like that he says, I drink now not to forget, but, you know, just because it's habit. And it's like, okay, that's a little better. And you hope that he was still around, maybe when Katniss and Peeta had their kids. I don't know, because in the Mockingjay epilogue, she talks about how it took a long time, a lot of convincing from Peeta, years. And Haymitch definitely made it sound like he didn't have long left, because he could have been a sort of weird uncle to the grandfather-ish figure. I don't know. We have a new phrase too, you know, there's the stay with me always, real or not real, real, and now we have I love you like all fire. I love you like all fire. That just, yeah. So that was my super duper messy, unscripted, unfiltered, wasn't really much to filter, I don't think I filtered anything, overlook of the book a day later, you know, having not even been 12 hours since I started reading it at the point that I'm recording this, or 12 hours, 24 hours. It's been like 13 hours since I finished reading it. Much like my ballad one, I know that's all over the place. That's why I don't call this a book review. It's not a book critique or anything, because it's not structured in any way, shape, or form. It's just, it's there. Overall, I love this book. It's very dark. It's very sad. I love all of the extra lore that we're getting, but it's not my favorite. It is not my favorite. I didn't find it as gripping as the others. I don't think that makes it bad. Catching Fire will always be my favorite of the books, and then I think Ballad is right next to that. And then I think the other three, Mockingjay, Hunger Games, and this one, Sunrise, just kind of all fall together at this point. If I were to give it an arbitrary number score, I don't know, out of 10, I'll say a 7. You know, I would give Catching Fire 10 out of 10. I would give Ballad 9 out of 10. And then I think the rest I give all 8. I don't know, maybe this one is the lowest one. This might be my least favorite book. But when I say that, I don't mean in the sense that it was bad, that I didn't like it at all. I just mean in the sense that it was more lore. It was more exposition, and it was still great. And I love getting more history and seeing how things tie together. I have no problem with that. At this point, I don't know what else Suzanne could talk about. And okay, here's what I think the other issue I have is. Ballad, there were definitely so many little things, particularly from Lucy Gray, that I thought, ooh, she's being very careful, but she's sneaking in some points. You know, things about government overreach and things like that, and she did that in the other books as well, but that one, it definitely felt like there's still more to talk about. And I remember, and I'm pretty sure I said this in that review, quote unquote, me discussing it after reading it, was that, wow, I don't think she could have timed when that book came out better. Definitely not on purpose. She didn't know certain things would happen, but it came out in May of 2020, and it was perfectly timed. She could not have. It's kind of like Animal Crossing for the Switch, where it's like, man, you're so lucky it came out when it did. How perfect. I know that's a completely other topic. Actually, the day I'm recording this is the day before the 5-year anniversary of Animal Crossing New Horizons, for those who play video games and love that one like I do. This one did not feel like there was any specific, I'm trying to point out this flaw with our system, this flaw with our government. I mean, it's there. It's obviously there, but it doesn't, I don't know, it just didn't overwhelm me in that sense. There was nothing that I was like, ooh, she's making a point about this. Nothing like that. It was kind of more of the same, which isn't bad. It's not bad. It's still stuff that needs to be said. This was more focused on the story element of it, which, okay, yeah, so was ballad, but I don't know, maybe that doesn't make any sense. This video is already long enough uncut, so we'll see how long the actual video ends up being. But let me know in the comment section below what you thought of this book. Where does it fall for you? How would you rank it? Can you wait for the film? Because I'm excited for the film, but really nervous. It'll be quite interesting. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, consider giving the video a like, joining the Geekdom by subscribing, and yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Thank you so much to my patrons and channel members. Y'all are amazing, especially all these new ones we've gotten recently, like Jen and Nintendo Memories and William on Patreon, and TristinDiscoArts. Is that what it was? There's a dude named Tristan that just became a channel member too, so thank you guys so much for your support. But anyway, that is all for today. Thank you for watching, and may the odds be ever in your favor.